Welcome back to part 2 of our interview with Nicole Holland. Part 1 was packed with amazing insights, and we continue with the theme with additional marketing ideas, things that worked for Nicole, things that did not work, things that you can use in your own business, and her keys to execution.
Welcome to this edition of Peak Performers Podcast with your host, Thor Conklin. Thor will be sharing the necessary tools, strategies, and psychology you'll need to become a peak performer in any area of your life or business.
Thor Conklin here. We give you the tricks, the tips, the tools, the strategy, the technology, and the psychology peak performers use in order to get more done and execute at the highest level. If you know what to do but struggle with getting it all done, or simply want to raise your game to the next level, this podcast is for you. Sit back and enjoy. Here at Peak Performers, we're all about execution. So tell us some of the things that you did that worked and things that maybe didn't work and some of the obstacles you ran into in creating the summit.
For me, when I'm in summit mode, it is fast moving and I twist and turn. And, again, that t-shirt idea, that just came after we already started promoting, and it was just an inspiration. And I just said, hey, can we do this? And Inspired Buffalo said yes. And then I sent out an email to the guests and they said yes. It was so quick. So one of the things that worked this year too, which was really good, was I did a kickoff party on Facebook Live. I used the tool called Be Live. It's BELIVE.TV. And it's a free application that connects with your Facebook and allows you to broadcast with multiple people over Facebook Live. So this year I used that. Last year I had used Google Hangouts on Air or YouTube Live. This year I used Facebook Live and got a lot of traction that way. Obviously asking everybody who attended the kickoff party, hey, share this up right now with your people. Let them know we're here. I gave away lots of prizes. So I asked the guests that were going to come on and join me to each come up with a prize or two they would give away to somebody in the audience. So that got some good traction. It was supposed to be an hour. It wound up being 3. I'm the kind of person who will go, I gauge my audience, and as long as they're asking questions and as long as I've got hundreds of people on the line, I'm not going to quit. At 3 hours, I had to go to the bathroom, so that was it. But I really try and just try it. I think in marketing, everything is trying it out.
But there's a difference between people that think about it and people that get it done. You get stuff done.
I get stuff done.
Yeah. So what are your keys to execution?
I don't think I can just not get stuff done. I think it's a personality trait. I'm a dreamer, but I'm also a doer. I dream something up and I act on it. If I don't take deliberate action quickly, it won't happen. And sometimes that's perfect, right? I'll have ideas and inspirations. I'm not a writer, but I have notebooks all over my house, like those spiral school notebooks. And I love colored pens. And I'm addicted to fountain pens again. There's a company called Goulet Pens. It's online, and Brian Goulet is the co-founder, and he was one of my guests. And I was like, oh, I'm so excited about fountain pens. So now I've bought like 15 different fountain pens, all with different colors. And there's something very soothing and creative about taking those different colored pens and writing out my ideas on notebooks. And half the time I never look at the stuff again, but it's just a process that I write things out. And as I do, that next step or that first thing to do in order to implement just kind of becomes apparent to me.
Was there anything that you learned? It seems like trying to get 41 guests kind of lined up. It's almost like herding cats.
Nah, it's easy.
It was easy.
It is, because I'm a systems person. So I had all my systems dialed in before. Now, last year, or I should say 2015, I launched my business as it is today. The business, well, not as it is today, because now I'm moving into interviews that convert, but there's still the podcast and there's still, the summit. But what I did was I moved away from having a company and I moved around having the branding around me. So as the personality, as the brains and the brand. And so when I did that, everything was new and I had to figure it out as I went. But, after lots and lots of trials and figuring out what worked and what didn't. I've got it dialed in pretty well, but I would have to say acuity scheduling has been my lifeline for the past 2 years. And it's allowed me to get really systematic about getting people booked for interviews and communicating with them in a way that they have everything they need, that I have everything I need. And so it's actually quite simple. One of the hardest things is vetting people and turning people away from me, because I'm very clear on my mission and on my structure. So the first year I came up with 30 because I was doing it one interview a day for 30 days. So from November 1st to the 30th. This past year in 2016, I wanted 10 days and I wanted to do, I wanted between 3 and 4. So I wasn't sure how many actually I would wind up with. It was going to be 30 plus. But what was important to me was that there was only one speaker per topic, because what I see happen in a lot of summits and online events is they're such a turnoff to me because they're overwhelming. And I am my ideal client avatar, basically me as I was before I started my business. When I first quit my job as a correctional officer, I needed guidance. I needed support. I didn't need to be told all the things that I could do. I know everything's possible. I needed to know what's one way to do it. So, for example, my guest for the 2015 summit for podcasting was John Lee Dumas. And so I only wanted one person to talk about podcasting, even though there may be great people like Cliff Ravenscraft and Daniel J. Lewis. I mean, there's so many different people, David Ralph, so many different people teaching it. But all I needed was one. I just needed one person to talk about how to get started with podcasts, because that's all my audience needed. And what's one way to get started with writing a book? What's one way to do a membership site? So I had all these different topics that I knew people wanted to know, people who are already offline business owners, how to bring that offline business online in a very strong and profitable way. So I wanted to look at all the different marketing angles and get one person who was trusted and excellent at that one topic to speak.
I love that one thing. Of course, there's a great book out currently, Gary Keller, The One Thing. Saying no to things is so important. How do you decide what to say no to and what to say yes to?
Oh, it's something I struggle with all the time.
Well, you're an entrepreneur. We all do.
Yeah.
That's why we talk about it.
And, it's saying, so I guess when it comes to guests, it's getting easier and easier to say no to people the deeper I get into it, the more mature I get as a podcast host, as a summit host, because I get clearer and clearer about who's a yes and what's a yes. So that's becoming easier, but it's just a growth process. And I think it's the same thing for other applications. So whether it's like lately I'm kind of reeling in all of the yeses I've given to supporting different people with different things. And I'm like, whoa, there's just too much. And so I think that also is just getting really more clear about what my mission is and keeping that front of mind. And I can't say yes to somebody just because I like them. And I can't say yes to people just because I don't want to hurt their feelings. I have to say yes to only things that are in line with what I'm looking to do and the trajectory of my business. And I mean, it's getting easier and easier every day.
Yeah, I think it's tough for anybody that really cares about other people. We care about their mission, but we first have to care about our mission first.
Absolutely.
And, I think there's a big distinction also with future time versus current time. It's really easy to say no, for something today or tomorrow because we're busy. But it's like, can you help me like next month? Yeah, I guess so. And then next month comes and then all the other stuff gets in there and it's like, why did I do that? I get asked all the time. They're like, hey, can you attend this event in a month? I'm like, I can. They're like, well, are you? I'm like, I haven't made a decision yet. I'm not going to make a decision yet until I know I can actually do it. There's a big difference of being able, can do something versus I will do something. Yeah.
Definitely.
I used to drive my kids nuts when they were young. Can we go to the store? Yeah, we can. We're not.
Really? Oh my gosh. And I like too that you mentioned the future versus present, because that is also in that assessment piece now that I do. Is what I was doing was saying yes to things that were relevant to my present situation, things that were going to move me forward. Now I am not. I'm looking at where am I going without those things, and will they propel me from where I'm going to that next level?
What keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night is I can't quiet my mind. Like in terms of keeping me up at night as in like stress, no, well, the things that get to me, I guess, are just overcommitting. But like I said, I'm getting better and better about that. I am a workaholic. If it's something that I feel inspiration about, I'll just keep going. And a lot of people might see that as a problem. I don't, but I love being up at night. And from the literal standpoint, I love getting creative at night. I find my best ideas come to me that way, and I get a lot done because there's no emails going off generally.
Well, when you walk into your living room and your family's there and they're like, we need to talk, then you might know that it could be a problem. But until that point, keep doing what you're doing.
And that's the thing, is it's my lifestyle. My lifestyle works for me because I don't have a family. If I had kids and, a spouse and stuff, then I'm sure that would be different. But I think everybody just has to find that right groove for themselves. But for me, I like living alone and I don't even have to worry about like my partner because he's got his own life and, we see each other when we want to see each other. But other than that, it's like, my time is my time. My space is my space. So It works for me.
And so often it's the ones around us that think they're helping us. They're like, but what's interesting? I've never had anybody come to me that is more successful than me and say, you know what? I think you're working too hard. I think you're putting in too many hours. It's all the people that aren't at that level yet.
It's people who see excuses and reasons that they won't have the kind of success that others do. And I always tell people when they're communicating with me, if they're listeners of the show or they're attendees, and I'll get emails sometimes from people and they'll be, or even in my membership group, I'll get messages and they're like, oh, well, when I'm a rock star, it's like, no, you are a rock star. Every moment of every day, you choose your path and you choose to, but you just have to own those choices. And even when you're like feeling like, oh, I'm lazy or whatever, then own it. Sometimes, like yesterday, I went to bed at 7. I'm trying to kick a cold. I took an allergy pill. I was out for 12 hours. And I'm okay with that there were emails that were not going to be answered and things weren't going to get done because I didn't feel good. And I wanted to take some time for me, and I did. And I don't feel bad about that. And I think that's something mindset-wise that people have to recognize. Don't feel bad about anything you do, and don't make excuses. Own it. If you feel like sitting on the couch and eating a bag of Doritos, by God, just do it. But say, I'm choosing this. It's not something that you don't have to do anything by default. Do it by design.
Yeah, so many people have it wrong. They think you have to do something and then you'll have something and then you'll be something. It starts with being. You've got to be a rock star and then do what rock stars do, and then you'll have what rock stars have.
100%. I love that.
Be, do, have.
Be, do, have.
What's one thing you've been afraid to try?
Till now, I can't think of anything. Maybe, skydiving maybe, but it's not even afraid to try, because there was a time I wanted to, and then there's a time I don't. Like, I don't want to go skydiving now. So I don't think anything. I've always kind of gone after everything I've wanted to do, and even things that I was afraid of. Like, for example, business-wise, when I started my business, again, I was a correctional officer. I had no online presence. I didn't know the first thing about online anything. And the last thing I wanted to do was make myself public, but I also recognized that if I wanted to be a public person, my long-term vision was to be able to affect change and support people. So that started with making a Facebook page that actually had my real name and picture. That was a huge step for me. And I wanted to get known, so I had to do a video. I had to do a Facebook Live. I had to get out and be public. And it was not fun, but I did it because I knew I needed to show up as who I wanted to be in order to have what I wanted to have.
You know, you liken yourself as a marketing geek. I love that. So tell us some of the marketing ideas after coming up with your first Facebook and putting your real picture on it. Where'd you go from there?
Well, I should say that my first love was marketing. And so when I read guerrilla marketing back in the early 90s, I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And I think I've always had that strategic mind. And even before that, I mean, I took over a program in middle school that I had participated in grade 6 and grade 7, and then in 8th grade, I took it over. It was already established where you'd go. Some of the kids would go. There was one leader, so that wound up being me in 8th grade. But the leader organized events between the senior citizens at a nearby apartment building and the children at the middle school. And it had been going on for years. It was something that was, I don't know, an initiative of the school and the senior program. And when I took it over, I had already had this vision since grade 6 about all the ways it could be better. And then grade 7, all the ways it could be better. And so I kind of took it to the next level where, we'd go and do, we did a Christmas show where I got kids and we did choreographed dance and we put on a presentation at the senior center. And then just a bunch of things like that. And to culminate the year's events, I hosted what was called a senior prom, where I got donations from some of the restaurants locally. I organized and orchestrated this big event for all the seniors, and it got a lot of attention. But that all came from my brain and from my heart. And so I think it was just one of those gifts that I was born with, was that strategic mind of, how can we make this better? How can we make this more exciting? And how can we get people involved? And it's not something that I was taught. I think it just was a natural gift, and it continues now with when I work with a client or I look at somebody's product or service that they offer, and I really get to know them. I get to know their heart, and I get to know what their desires are. I'm able to it doesn't necessarily matter what the different available options are. I just kind of come up with something, and then we find the tools to create that outcome.
Hey, I want to make a note here. I'm sure you'll agree with this. Is the idea of making it better is find out how to make it better, do it, then ask that question again. How can I make it even better? But so many people get caught into, before they even launch, it's like, how can I make it better? And they don't do anything. How can I make it better? And they spend their entire lives figuring out how to make it better, but never do it. So do it and then make it better again and again and again.
Yeah. And you can't make something better if you're not doing it. I mean, and that's...
A lot of people try that in their mind.
Right. And so, I mean, it's funny you say this because it even goes back to when I started my first real business, which was corporate training. I was working as a trainer for a company, and the longer I was there, the more disgusted I was with how they did business. And I was like, I can't stay with this. So I looked for a better company to work for. And I did. I got hired with a better company. I moved on to that company. And then it was better than where I had been, but I was still quite disgusted. So I thought, well, what if I just did it myself? What if I offered this service myself because I could do it better? And so that's how my first real business happened, and how I got some really amazing clients, because I just always was looking to make it better. But you have to actually be in it. That's something that I get frustrated with when I hear people talk about how they're going to do something the best, so much better than what's out there, but they haven't even done it. That you have to, yes, exactly like you said, you have to do it before you can improve it.
Yeah, I always tell people, if you want to hear a really lousy podcast episode, just go to episode 1 of mine.
Oh, totally. Mine too.
And the funny part was, I thought I was actually pretty good.
But it's maturity, and it's just like in growth and, in our own lives. Like, you couldn't ride a bike when you started the way you could 10 years later. Now you don't even think about it. Same with driving, everything we do, it's all iteration after iteration.
Thank you so much for listening today. I really do appreciate your time, and I hope you found today's show valuable. If you would like to receive these shows automatically to your phone or to your computer, simply go to iTunes and subscribe. After listening to several of the shows, if you're so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating, as this helps us reach additional people and spread the message. If you're truly committed to taking your life to the next level and doing whatever it takes to become a peak performer, but something's holding you back, something is blocking your way, and you just can't seem to figure out what it is, send me an email to info@thorconklin.com, and I'd be more than happy to get on the phone with you. We'll schedule a 15-minute discovery call. No obligation, no cost. I absolutely love to hear from the listeners, and if there's something I can do to help, I'd be more than happy to do that. Also, if you found something of great interest in today's show and you want to share that with your friends and family, simply go to my Facebook page, Thor Conklin, click on the episode, hit the share button, and share it on your page. You can follow me at Twitter at Thor Conklin. The website is thorconklin.com. We're constantly adding new free resources, discussing additional tricks, tips, tools, and strategies on how to be a peak performer. Remember, I try to keep these episodes short so you can listen to them during dot time, doing other things, commuting, driving, walking, working out. Decide to be a peak performer in all that you do. And until tomorrow, have an absolutely amazing day. That concludes part 2 of our interview with Nicole Holland. Please stay tuned later this week for the conclusion, part 3.